I have been involved with our Milton Keynes service for a number of years. I was heavily involved in kind of helping with our Emerson Valley original launch, and sort of, I think, have a fairly a decent idea at this point, and sort of some of the big challenges associated with public transport in Milton Keynes, and so the things that this service is targeted at improving. I'm going to hand it over to Natasha to quickly introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natasha Maximenko. I am the general manager for MK Connect, and have been looking after the current MK Connect service, replacing Bus 28 route, and will also be looking after the new service as it launches. I work really closely with Adele, as well as our drivers on the ground. We'll be plugging in with my comments and answering as relevant throughout this meeting.
And I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Gabby McCaig. I oversee VIA's global community engagement and community affairs practice. So we work really closely with our partners everywhere we're operating around the globe, really kind of focused on working with some of the most vulnerable communities and communities who potentially have some of the higher barriers to accessing our services, and making sure that we're really building programs that both meet their needs and really work for them, but that we're also, really helping to support in the transition to make sure no rider is left behind and everybody's ready to ride kind of day one of launch. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but very nice to meet everybody.
Great. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of an intro into sort of what is MK Connect, what is this service going to look like, and I'll acknowledge we've filmed this using our existing MK Connect app. Obviously, there is going to be a much bigger service zone, and we'll go through this. It's going to have slightly different features. We'll talk about this also, but this hopefully gives a very clear understanding of, at least if you're using the app, how you go to book a ride. Excellent. So just give me 1 second and I'm going to share my screen again and pull up our presentation. So let me just quickly go into our present mode. Excellent. So in terms of our current MK Connect service, I kind of showed this video so that we didn't have to kind of go through at least this part of it in detail. But, you know, it's a minibus that you order from your phone or via a web portal or via calling the designated phone number. And the idea is to provide public transportation that, one, can be more accessible because it can be tailored to the specific needs of the individual booking the ride, and two, that can hopefully provide shorter wait times and a better quality of service for all residents, regardless of where they live. I'm not going to go through this. This is about how you book a ride, which I think we've just demonstrated in the video format. But I wanted to just talk a little bit about what we've been doing to date. And then, yeah.
Sorry, nothing's showing on my screen. Can everybody else see?
Yeah,
It's on my
still loading.
Oh, sorry. I will just wait. Can you tell me when it's loaded?
Yeah. Looks as though it's frozen to me.
Look, don't ask me a question if I'm muted.
Natasha, Gabby, can you see my screen?
Not yet, Jess.
Not yet, Jess, sorry.
Maybe I will. Do you want to, Natasha, any chance you want to share?
Yeah, let me try and see.
In case it's my issue.
Better.
Oh, there it is.
Really?
Yep, it's come up now.
It's up.
I'm not sharing anymore.
You may want to just put it to presentation mode, Jess.
No, but I'm not. I'm not even sharing. It's saying I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Can you still see it?
Yeah,
Seems like a massive delay.
full desktop. Now it's just gone back to the loading screen.
Yeah, I think one, I think there's a really big delay, but I think two, it actually says I'm not sure. Oh no, it says I am. Okay, I've stopped sharing. Natasha, do you want to share and see if you get a better result? Sorry, everyone.
It's okay.
Let's see if this works. Can you
Yeah.
Yeah, that's up. Thanks, Natasha.
Can you go to the slide with the map? Yeah, much better. Excellent. So before we kind of talk about, is this someone not on mute?
Can everyone please put themselves on mute?
Yeah, I think the noise is gone. So before we talk about, I guess, what is happening on the 1st of April, we've been fortunate enough to be able to sort of run a pilot of what this might look like since the 25th of October, when we sort of started operating the MK Connect service in the Emerson Valley region. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the service and some of the things that we've learnt. So a little bit about kind of the service and how it's gone to date. So it launched on the 25th of October. It's been operating 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on a Sunday. These are extended operating hours versus what was there prior to this, because the 28 bus didn't operate on a Sunday. The pricing has been £2.50 per trip, but free for bus pass holders after 9:30 a.m. and £1 for all-in-one MK card holders. Since we launched, average ridership has been about 146 rides per week. And we've actually seen, we saw a really nice bump in coming out of lockdown in November, and all the way through to kind of lockdown starting again at the end of December. And so we've kind of been able to see sort of the ridership changes, but we've had very, very consistent and solid ridership throughout the pilot. Average ratings have been 4.8 out of 5. So we'll go through the process, but at the end of every trip, you can rate your trip and you can provide additional feedback, which has meant both us and the council have been able to get sort of very granular feedback about passengers and how they've enjoyed their journeys and things that they'd like changed. Average wait times have been 9.7 minutes. I think the bus that operated on this route prior to this was coming every 60 minutes, or maybe every 30 to 60 minutes. So average wait times of 9.7 minutes has mean that riders using this service have seen a huge improvement in sort of their average wait. And on average, passengers have had to walk about 120 metres. You want to go to the next slide, Natasha? And one of the things we've been able to do is we've been able to run a survey on sort of active riders over the past few weeks, which has helped to kind of demonstrate a few key trends. Obviously, it's only a subset of riders, but one of the things that's been interesting is that the average age of the riders has spanned. So, we've had as many, riders in almost every category. I think this has also been true of employment status and of income, which allows us to kind of at least surmise that riders of every demographic have been able to use the service and are among our sort of active rider group. Next slide. And we've also sort of asked them about kind of some of the benefits they've seen and how disappointed they'd be if the MK Connect service didn't exist, and to also actually provide some additional information. And the benefits, I think have been kind of somewhat interesting in that, most people have just talked about the affordability of the service and how it's provided a much easier commute. And for us, I guess not that surprisingly, people would say, had been saying that they'd be incredibly disappointed if this service was to no longer operate. And next slide. In terms of the things they liked most about it, I think affordability, convenience, and reliability came out, as did the fact that we've got incredibly friendly drivers, which is always nice to see. In terms of things that they wanted to see improve, they wanted to see a further reduction in wait times, and they wanted to see an expansion to the operating hours, which is coming on the 1st of April. And then finally, in terms of things that they called out, great service and fantastic value for money. I'm looking forward to this service being extended to further places and more hours. Reliable, very friendly drivers, fastest and nice drivers, most reliable service, polite drivers and affordable, a safe, affordable and reliable and eco-friendly transportation service. So we asked if they wanted to kind of provide negative or positive. I think most of the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. And it's been nice to see that at least the active riders currently using the service are really fond of the service and excited to see it expand. I think that is the end of the survey part. I'm going to hand it over to Natasha now to talk about what we could expect from the 1st of April.
Thank you, Jess. I will focus on mainly the things that are changing, and we can take questions at the end of the session. So I guess just to kind of set the scene, I want to call out that with this service and with expansions, our goal is really to make sure that this service remains to be accessible. It gives equal access both in terms of passengers with special needs, as well as passengers who might find it difficult to currently access transportation in areas which don't have many options. Same time, it's really important for us to maintain high quality as we expand and continue with the level of performance we've seen on the existing service, and at the same time balance the efficiency. So the success of this, both for the Milton Keynes Council and for us, really relies on efficient use of the vehicle seats, as well as optimally spreading the demand across the fleet. And this is where our technology comes in very handy, really allows us to achieve this in a balanced way. So let me talk a little bit about the specific expansion features. The zone area will cover from April 1st pretty much the entire Milton Keynes borough. It follows the borough borderlines, and you can see the map here on what it's going to look like. Those of you who may have been trying MK Connect app already will not be yet seeing this large zone. It's going to get activated as of 6 a.m. on April 1st. So do check it out. From April 1st onwards, you will be able to try and book rides for the typical journeys that you may want to travel, and see how that comes out in terms of the options. We'll be aiming to maintain good levels of average wait times. In the city areas, we will try to, our goal is to stick to about 15 minutes average wait time. It might be a little bit longer in the farther rural areas, just for the amount of time it takes a vehicle to get there. But we're really certain that we have enough of the vehicles lined up to do this reliably. We will also be aiming to maintain the same amount of walking distance. So, as Jess explained, our service relies on a network of virtual bus stops, as we call them. These are safe stopping points around the area, which are safe for the vehicles to stop and safe for the passengers to board. It's something that we take good care and check in advance, and typically it takes a couple of 100 meters to get there, so a couple of minutes of walk. In addition to the existing options of booking, which is smartphone, tablet, or calling a call center, we will be also introducing an option to book on a computer. So those passengers who do have internet access at home, but perhaps don't have a smartphone, will be able to go on a web portal and make a booking there. And we're also evaluating options to have booking points around Milton Keynes using ticketing machines, which we'll chat about a little bit later. It's something that is an ongoing process, and we're looking to introduce that shortly after launch. Our hours of operation will be extended, and that should be quite exciting for those existing passengers who said they want extended operating hours. So we'll be working 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday to Saturday, and then 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays. For the launch weekend, we will have special hours due to Easter long weekend, and you will see this information in the app if you do want to travel on that day. In terms of pricing, we'll be charging $350 at peak and $250 off peak. We will continue to take older persons and disabled persons bus passes, for who the travel will be free, and in line with the typical bus policy. We'll also continue to accept all-in-one MK cards for discounted youth concession travel at £1. And we'll also have an option for passengers to pay with MK Move card and pay-as-you-go e-purse by selecting to pay on board option when they travel. We also, a big important change for us is introduction of wheelchair accessible vehicles in the fleet. These will be available from April 1st to book, and the way this will work is any passenger who is a wheelchair user will have an option to specify that requirements in their account, either directly or by giving a call to the customer services team, who can do that. And this only needs to be done once, and then any future bookings will make sure that there's a wheelchair accessible vehicle that arrives, and our vans will come as close to the actual address as possible, so there will not be a requirement to walk a short distance to meet the vehicle. Our drivers will be notified, and they will know in advance that they're serving a wheelchair user, and we'll be asking them to give them a hand boarding into the vehicle. We'll introducing some exciting accessibility features. So our apps maintain and support all of the existing iOS and Android accessibility features, such as voiceover for visually impaired and larger text and improved readability for visually impaired. And for any passenger who wants to make sure that their driver is aware of any special needs, such as hearing, visual, or cognitive impairment, those passengers will be able to get in touch with their customer services team and add a special note on their account. What this will do, this will notify our drivers that there is a special need, so that they are aware in advance. And in certain cases, they will also come to the door sort of as close as possible to the actual address requested as a vehicle can get to. So just moving on, this slide really kind of recaps the booking options and visualizes them. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but as I mentioned, tablet, smartphone, computer, using a landline to get in touch with customer service will all be options available from April 1st and already available now for those who are using our service in the smaller zone. And then the ticket machines will be coming shortly after launch. I wanted to talk a little bit about our fleet. We're really excited to have these vehicles on the road. We spent quite a bit of time making sure that we take on board the feedback that we've received so far on the existing service, and we lined up new vehicles which are larger and should be more comfortable for passengers who found it perhaps a little bit difficult with our old fleet to get in. So most of our fleet will be electric. These are Vauxhall EV Auros. These are new EVs in the market, really exciting. They're quite spacious. They have large boot sizes, which will fit scooters or folded bikes or even unfolded pushchair. So this will give quite a lot of flexibility traveling for people traveling with extra pieces. And these will be able to fit up to 7 passengers. For purposes of social distancing, we're currently limiting passenger count to 3 people. But as soon as that's lifted, this will be using all of the seats available in the car. And then for the wheelchair accessible vehicles, we also have new models of Renault Traffic. These are conversions that are being done by the leading UK provider who specializes in wheelchair accessible vehicles. So we're very comfortable that we're getting the best offer available in the market at the moment. These will be rear loading vehicles with 6 regular passenger seats and 1 wheelchair passenger. All of these vehicles will be brightly branded so that it's easy for passengers to find them in the street. And as soon as you have these on the roads, hopefully you'll start seeing them around Milton Keynes. The other thing I wanted to say about our fleet is one of the benefits of our technology is that it allows to scale up or down the size of the fleet, which also allows us to be more efficient and much more tailored to the demand levels that we're seeing. So we are launching with a specific number of vehicles, but we will be monitoring very closely and essentially adjusting our fleet size, not just potentially week on week, but even throughout the day. Okay, so I'll stop here and I'll hand off to Gabby, who will talk a little bit about our experience working with various communities and across the world, and how we, as VIA, make sure that we have good engagement levels with vulnerable groups, that we address the questions and concerns around equity and accessibility. Over to you, Gabby.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Natasha. Some of what I've covered, what I have here in the slides that Natasha's kind of already covered. So, I'll talk through it at a high level. But one thing I really wanted to stress about the wheelchair accessible vehicles is one of the pieces of feedback we've had, not just in Milton Keynes, but I think from many of our services, around the globe, is that as part of the wheelchair users experience in using the service, having a vehicle seating configuration that allows them to really be part of the ride and not feel like they're sort of off separately in a sort of more isolated section of the vehicle is really important into feeling like an integrated part of the service. And so personally, I'm really excited at the way that the seating layout works in these vehicles, so that the passenger in a wheelchair is actually in and amongst, if they're traveling with their friends, their family, whoever, they'll be able to sort of sit in and amongst them, which I think is a really great feature and something I'm really excited about this vehicle. And of course, obviously, with COVID restrictions. So in the beginning, while we're all continuing to maintain social distancing, vehicle capacity will be limited. But ultimately, as we move towards recovery, it will be great for folks to be really integrated as part of the service. So I think we can move to the next slide. And as Natasha spoke about, the app and the web portal and the tablet version of the app are all compatible with voice to text, text to speech technology in readers. They have adaptive font sizes and many additional kind of customizations and features to make the app more accessible to the visually impaired community, including some modifications in the app. So when you're a visually impaired user, it allows for extra time in terms of accepting, which booking offering you want to take and things like that, in order to ensure that the text-to-speech technology has time to read out kind of all the key information on the screen. And this works as well in the tracking stage of the journey as well. So those passengers can kind of be fully informed as they're using the app and kind of navigating the service, which is great. I think we moved that one. And on the back end, we have a number of features as well that really help to enable the service and make it accessible for folks with a variety of accommodation needs. So when a user who has an impairment, whether it's visual, whether it's hearing, whether it's a cognitive impairment, when they call dispatch and they sort of notify an agent that they need an accommodation in the service, the dispatcher is able to add a note to their profile, which will persist sort of for the duration of their use of the service. And this note can be passed along to the driver to notify the driver. Obviously the clear-cut event is if it's a wheelchair accessible vehicle, we'll obviously need to make sure that that passenger gets paired with the right vehicle. But in other cases, whether it's a rider who may be visually impaired or have some sort of a cognitive impairment, and the driver needs to kind of take that an extra few steps to sort of assist in them coming on board, or assist maybe in locating the vehicle as they're meeting them at the pickup location, we can make sure the driver has that relevant information so they can kind of take the appropriate action and provide the kind of best quality of service possible for that rider. We can move to the next one. And so this is just to give an example of some of the communities that we really specialize as a team in working with and in trying to understand and make sure that we're really supporting their needs. The disabilities community, seniors as well, who may or may not also have an accommodation need, but also may have varying degrees of comfort and familiarity with technology and sort of how the booking will work. Users who lack access to a smartphone, who maybe need to use the phone booking system, or eventually, once it's up and running, the ticketing booking system, as well as unbanked riders, and ensuring that we've got a solution that kind of works for folks who do not have a commercial credit card or a prepaid debit card as well. And how we think about approaching this and really make sure we're reaching with people. Yes, we have a lot of experience doing this around the globe, but nobody, I truly personally believe that nobody knows the folks on the ground better than the organizations on the ground who are working with these folks every day and supporting them and really understand the local nuance and sort of the right approach to kind of take with this specific community. And so we really aim to seek a very collaborative approach where we work with local communities, we work with the great organizations and advocacy groups, healthcare services, senior centers, whoever it may be, who are physically on the ground and really know these communities and really believe in having an honest and open conversation and an ongoing conversation with them, using them to help, inform us on, how can we better adjust our messaging to make sure that we're getting the right information to the right people. How are we doing in educating riders and making them really comfortable and understanding of how this all works? And how do we create the right framework to ensure we're funneling back feedback and we're using that feedback to sort of constantly iterate and improve the service? So look forward to working kind of with everybody here on this call to kind of continue as we move into launch and continue implementing those processes. And this is just an example of a pamphlet that's actively, I think, now being distributed amongst the community, which provides, I think, sort of a much more in-depth overview of kind of how the service works and some of these key pieces of information that are particularly relevant to these communities. So, there's obviously a bunch of standard marketing material, which is kind of a little bit more high level, but this really dives into a lot of nuance about, how to actually specifically use the service. There's a very robust set of FAQs, which kind of focuses on a lot of the questions around accessibility and sort of the various policies and procedures and sort of what the experience will be like for a user like that. So we think this is a great piece of material to kind of help with that rider education piece and hopefully get the word out to folks. And kind of going back to sort of how we think about working with the community, we obviously are very keen to identify the key organizations that are working with these folks. We want to reach out to them. We want to make sure that the materials we've created already are kind of in their hands. They can help distribute these materials. If there's additional materials that anybody thinks would be very beneficial for us to create, we're happy to discuss that and kind of talk about what that might look like so we can make sure that we've got kind of the right formats for these things that can then kind of be sent out more widely. And obviously working with these organizations to then distribute this information. And I think the last piece that we really believe can be very effective and we're happy to explore is we're happy to do live training sessions for any organization as well and their staff, talking to them about making sure they really understand how the app works, how the phone booking works, sort of making sure everybody is very comfortable and familiar with the technology so that they can also be a resource to folks. If folks have questions or and things are coming up, we want to make sure everybody kind of feels very comfortable and confident in how it all works. And that's it from me.
Okay, thank you to the team from VIA for that presentation. And we are now into the questions section. If people want to raise hands, that's probably the easiest way to keep it straightforward. Any questions? Kerry, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, when it says obviously if we have an additional person with us, so I have 2 PAs because of my complex needs. Am I able to take both them with me or am I only able to take one? What's the limitation?
At the moment, because of COVID, we're limiting numbers in the vehicle to 3 people. So we're also limiting groups to 3 people. So you can book a group for 3.
Yeah.
The limitation at the moment might be the payment method, because obviously the additional parties would need paying for. And if you're traveling on a card, you would be traveling for free. So they might want to book separately, but get the same vehicle. So if you both book at the same time, you'll almost certainly get the same vehicle. And that is it's a good point, and it is something we're going to have to look at smoothing out so that we can make sure that disconnect between the payment methods is dealt with, and that people aren't put on a different vehicle if they're in a busier area, for instance. From home, I don't see it being a problem, but if you were in the middle of the city centre, there is always the risk that at the station or something you might get allocated a different vehicle, which is not what we want. It's unlikely, but it is a risk. We will look at smoothing that out. Does that?
Yeah, no, that answers, because obviously, I'm probably not the only disabled person out there that's going to have more than just one PA or / carer. So yeah, just wanted to.
No, and also, people want to travel with families, and there's all sorts of reasons for wanting to travel in groups. And as we remove the COVID restrictions, we will be able to book. People will be able to book more people, but we're only having 3 people on the vehicle at the moment for safety. So, the other thing I wanted to just pick out was we've talked about initially if people have additional requirements, we're asking them to phone, and we back and forth on this a bit because we were looking at putting some fairly sort of standard things into the app from day one, but we actually then felt that we possibly don't know enough, and that it'd be more useful to take calls in those first few weeks and really understand what the cases on the ground are and what people need from us on the ground and what they're asking for, and then build things into the app off the back of that information and that knowledge. So that's why we're asking people to phone when they set up their account in the early weeks to help us build a better picture of what requirements are in Milton Keynes. Thanks, Kerry. Ernie, you've got your hand up. You're still muted. Gotcha.
No, I know. I've just unmuted. I was taking my hand down out the way. Right, you've obviously got my list of 48 questions already. I don't know if Gabby, Jess and Natasha have seen it. If not, perhaps it's a good idea to pass it to them. Because
I will do. I've not had a chance to read it in detail myself yet, Ernie, because I've been back-to-back in meetings this week, but it is on my list to look at. Right,
okay, well, I suggest it gets passed to them because obviously a lot of the questions were there in what was shown today as well as. There will be a lot more questions if we manage to get everybody the invite in time.
Oh, you've muted again. Was that deliberate?
Me? I didn't think. Have you got me? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's come out this morning or from this is you talked in terms of wheelchair journeys, and I think I've got the answer already. How many wheelchair journeys have there been on the 28 routes?
I don't think we've had any. We did set something up to allow people to book them, although we didn't have these wheelchair accessible vehicles. We did put out a message that obviously we would book wheelchair journeys, and we would make sure an appropriate vehicle was dispatched via worked with some of the local private hire firms on that. But do you know, Natasha, you're probably in the best position to know. I haven't seen any in the stats I've had.
Yeah, I can jump in. We haven't had any requests for wheelchair vehicles actually since the 8th.
I would expect that to start to increase though, as people have started to, we start to encourage people back out and about.
Well, that comes on. You've done your analysis of the journeys. How many journeys have there been using passes at the moment, old people's or disabled?
There have been a reasonable number of concessionary passes used. I would have to go back through the exact figures, which aren't in front of me to tell you how many, but a reasonable percentage of the overall trips taken were concessionary journeys in the 28 area.
Because obviously, go on then, Natasha.
We've seen about 30% of journeys to book through older persons and disabled persons bus pass, which is pretty good. It obviously has varied throughout the lockdown times, and then same with all-in-one MK. There's a considerable amount. of youth concessions as well. So overall, I would say on the 28 service, about half of the journeys are done through concessions, either in CTS or
which is interestingly, sorry, I'm just going to jump in on that. It is interestingly what we modelled on the basis of, because that follows the pattern pre-COVID of trips in the area.
Right. Yes, if you could pass the exact stats on that over, it'd be interesting. Because you've obviously gone the average age, and that will be affected because we are in lockdown at the moment, so people are not travelling, or people who don't have to travel aren't travelling. But okay, that's the average age that you were giving us there. I would imagine is not really valid for the future. The stats that you gave about how people enjoyed the system and everything else said there were 9 answers.
Yes, we were very unlucky with the poll we did. We had it all set up to go, and we launched it as we went back into lockdown. So the week it was out, we didn't have as many people travelling as we had sort of the weeks before when we'd been preparing it, which was frustrating. Jess, I don't know if you want
I was just going to say, we've actually had an increase in the number of responses, and I had meant to actually update it. I mean, it's probably double that now, but the numbers were very consistent. Like the data we showed looked very, very similar with the doubling of responses. Obviously, like over time we'll expect to increase, and one of the good things about this service is that we can get real-time data, and so once the full service goes live, we will be working actively with the council to be collecting data, collecting feedback, collecting average ride ratings, publishing that data, and I think we'll have a lot more visibility over public transport, whether it what level of a service it's providing to every citizen across Milton Keynes, and hopefully Adele can organise some sessions to share that data as it becomes available.
I'm gonna ask
Belle and Kerry give their questions.
I was gonna say let's pick up the other questions, and then we can always. I know you've always got questions, Ernie, so we can come back to you. I think Valerie was next. Val, you'll need to take your mute off.
Right. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah, you're quite quiet, but I can hear you.
I see from the notice on my local bus stop that the number 1 route will be changed as from the beginning of April. So I have 3 questions. Will I get the opportunity to book regular journeys that I know that I take on a long-term basis, or do I have to book day to day? And how about the return journey? Do I have to book that, and can I book that on a return on a time basis for a week or a fortnight or as required, or does it have to be done on a daily basis?
It is an on-demand service, so it is a case of booking as and when you want the vehicle. We're not doing advanced bookings. We're not doing block bookings. We do have to separate this out from the taxi service. So that's one of the things that taxis offer that we don't is the advanced booking. But this is very much designed to be on demand, real time, flexing as the system as people need it and call for it.
Right. And so in my position, I would book that I needed a wheelchair accessible vehicle. How near would they come to me?
They'll get as close as they possibly can safely. So if you have a house for the drive, they'll pull pretty much right up to it. If it's a little bit more difficult, they'll stop possibly on the corner a few meters away. But they're going to get as close as they can if you book a wheelchair vehicle.
Well, we've got a large where I live, we have a large off-road car parking area. Would they come into that?
Possibly, without knowing exactly where you are, Val. Like we'd have what virtual stops are in your area, but Natasha?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's, you know, we can come to, if you're a wheelchair user, we will come to whatever address you specify. And so, you know, if there is a nearby car park that's convenient for you, as long as you specify that on the booking, then we can come there.
Thank you.
Kerry, you've been waiting with your hand up for a few minutes.
Yeah, you mentioned the safety, obviously, with COVID and going back into, you know, in inverted brackets, normality. What other safety measures are you taking there? With, obviously, for quite a few of us, shielding wise, you've obviously got masks being worn or masks not being worn, you know, trips being taken out before we get on. Will it be sanitized down? Is it, you know, what's the protocol there?
I'm going to let Natasha answer that because she will give a more complete answer than I can.
Of course, yeah, happy to answer that. We, with our fleet, we have a weekly deep cleaning that happens each week for every vehicle. All our drivers have supplies, and they are cleaning vehicles after each ride, particularly high-touch spaces like handles and any sort of areas which people frequently use. We also require face masks to use our service, both by our drivers and the passengers, unless you're medically exempt. So these are varying measures that we have in place, which have been working pretty well so far. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. Thank you.
I would say as well, although the vehicles don't have, you know, they're not as big and don't have as much open space as a traditional bus, they are significantly more spacious than a car with, you know, more airflow through. So that also helps. Val, is that a new hand up or left over from before? Okay. Does anyone else have anything they want to?
Well, I've still got plenty. You know that already.
I do. Go on, Ernie. We've got a little time.
I think it was Jess made the comment, but it might have been Gabby, that about the accessibility on the Via van will be better than the buses. Well, all buses are fully accessible and all have onboard passenger information now. So until you've got that, you can't really claim that one.
Sorry, and I didn't want to say that. Like, this is not, we're complementing the public transportation system. This isn't about being more convenient or I think what I was saying.
That was the way it came over.
I think what I was saying is that if you're a wheelchair passenger and you live 400, your closest bus stop is currently 400 meters, there is no way for that bus to know that you are going to struggle to get to that 400 meters. And so you theoretically have to wheel all the way to the 400 meters, or, you know, take a taxi. And I think one of the things that is nice about this service is we can actually say, okay, look, you're actually an able-bodied passenger. You're going to walk 300 meters. You're not, like, you know, this person is going to struggle to walk either for dementia reasons or for pre-existing medical condition reasons or because they're in a wheelchair. And I think, you know, if I, like, the wheelchair community that I've spoken to has suggested that that level of flexibility and being able to say, okay, I can actually claim that, you know, this bus stop, yes, it exists, but is too far from where I live, that extra tailored approach has been something that our community has said is incredibly valuable. So this is not about one being better than the other. There are great things about both. We are very pro public transportation. I'm very pro the bus. This service is going to push as many people to the commercial network as possible. And that is genuinely one of our goals. When I talked about the wheelchair accessible community, I think one of the things that they often remark is, you know, yes, everyone is within 400 meters from a bus stop, but not everyone finds it that easy to travel 400 meters. And there is no delineation. It's just if you're within 400 meters, then we're within the rules. And this allows for a little bit more nuance. And so that was the only comment I was making.
Right, okay. Well, I'll make the comment back. I'm pleased to see that's happening because it would have been something that would have been argued for from the start but when it was first announced, wheelchair users had to go to where the vehicle stopped. And you will see many questions from me about the route and drop curbs and everything else. So you might be telling me that was part of it, but it wasn't when it came out. Hence where the comments come from.
I think, yes, there's been a learning curve for me through the 28 and through working with VIA and with yourself and other parties, and the feedback that we've had over time and the process of getting to contract go live. We have made some changes to the approach. Yeah, so, and that is one of them.
That'll move on a couple of questions quickly, but I'll come back to them. Who have you spoken to? This is for Gabby. Who have you spoken to about disability accessibility in Milton Keynes then? You say you work with the community. Who in the community?
So in Milton Keynes specifically, you know, we've been kind of hearing feedback from you, Ernie, over the last couple of weeks. More globally, you know, we operate paratransit services in France and the United States, wheelchair accessible services sort of everywhere throughout the Middle East, Australia, New Zealand. We work with a number of disability organizations, and we work with many, you know, national organizations as well. In the US, we work with the United Spinals Association. We work with. I
did just say in Milton Keynes.
Sorry, I'm sorry if it was Milton Keynes. We hope to work with the community. So, you know, that's part of why
you'd have been getting all this ages ago if you'd have been in London to start with. Mind you, in London, you wouldn't have got into the system without it all happening.
So, I mean,
you are aware now of where the disabled community centres are. Can we start talking? Because it obviously has a lot of potential for the disabled community.
Absolutely, Ernie. And if VIA haven't been quite as connected in as they have been in other areas, that is partly on me. They've been relying on me to make those connections. And so
jump in here.
Can certainly jump in. Yeah.
That raises a couple of comments about the system.
Natasha's had her hand up. Let her speak.
I just want to give you some comfort, Ernie, that we actually have been engaging with the community. We did before the pandemic hit us, before the Bus 28 service went live, and actually before even the decision about DRT was made formally. We spent quite a lot of time specifically in Emerson Valley, Furtson area, engaging with the local parish councils and specifically attending community groups of the elderly and disabled residents. I personally have spoken to over 50 individuals of various capabilities, representing both the wheelchair users, passengers and residents with disabilities, the elderly, and these were very helpful conversations that actually have informed a lot of how we designed the system. And also we started, and that was, I think, February 2020, we started to reach out to various local communities. I won't be able to tell you the list off the top of my head straight away, but I can certainly share that. And it's just all kind of had to be paused with the pandemic because we couldn't really do a lot of stuff in person. So I do want to give some assurance that we actually do know, well, not perfectly as we would like to, but we have used a lot of the insights from the local groups to the extent that we could.
Okay.
And obviously
the feedback we've got from contacts in that area of the 28 don't say quite the same, but we won't worry about that one. Did you let Padma in, by the way, Adele?
Yes, she's just arrived. I've just let her in.
Yeah. One comment is you've talked, well, the van is brightly banded to make easier to find. Has that been viewed by any visually impaired groups to confirm it's easily seen by them?
I don't know if they've done any specific work on that. The logo, it's followed the colours of the council logo, and I would have to check internally what the process was for agreeing those. But it was deliberately following the MK Connect logo. Deliberately followed the colours of the council logo.
Right.
We took the brand We took the council's branding guidelines and the rule book.
Yeah, okay, it doesn't mean that that's actually easily visible to the visually impaired then. I mean, this might change now if you're coming to the door for all disabled groups or disabled individuals, but initially it was talked about people knowing what their bus was by reading the registration number, which if you're visually impaired is not a very practical idea. But I'll ask the question because it might still apply. Have you thought of putting actually large vehicle numbers on each individual vehicle? So you're looking for via 7, via 5. And that's clearly and largely on the side.
We haven't. I mean, the MK Connect logo, I think, does do that job. The additional information around registration numbers, drivers' names, things like that, it's additional, it's nice to have, it supports that feeling of security and comfort, knowing who your driver is and that you're getting into the right via. If you are in a very busy place where there are several, but equally, you know, you can speak to the drivers when they're there and check that you are the ride that they have booked.
That's on the basis that you've got full hearing.
Yes, it is. But there is, as I say, there is also
the one other thing I would say is that, like, you know, we are directly asking for feedback after every single ride, and we are actively going to respond to every piece of that feedback. We have a 6-month review with the council in the contract, where the point of that review is to take all of this on board. And only, like, if one of the feedbacks is that, like, actually having a really large number that said vehicle number 5 would make it much, much easier, and we see that feedback coming through from live rides, like, that is stuff that we could 100% accommodate. And so I think what we've done is we've looked at the service and said, like, how do we make this as accessible, as flexible, as good a quality of service as we possibly can? How do we make it fully electric for the people that really, really want a carbon neutral public transport system? You know, we've tried to take as much feedback on board. I'm not saying that every single question that you've got, we're going to have perfect answers to today. I think what we're also trying to do is launch a service that we can get instant feedback on. We are going to have regular review sessions with Adele. We're also happy to have regular review sessions with the council. And at the 6-month mark, our goal is to take all of this feedback in and try to work out what are the best additional features we can introduce to mean that we're only getting positive feedback. And we've done that already with the MK Connect service to date. I'm not saying we've addressed everything, but, like, as much of that feedback as possible, we've shared with the council, we've discussed what we can do to make changes and to improve the service. And that is 100% a commitment of ours. I can say it very, very loudly. This is getting recorded. We will continue an endeavour to continue to improve the service so that it meets as many potential possible needs of various members of the community as possible.
I'm going to jump in there as well, because I think it's important we acknowledge we don't expect DRT to be 100% solution to 100% of people. It is part of a public transport network, and it's part of a network that we are trying to get more integrated and more accessible and more and I do mean accessible, especially for people who have additional accessibility needs in this instance. You know, it's going to be one of a package of solutions that is offered across Milton Keynes. I think it's a really good one. I think it will be better for a lot of people, you know, in terms of the fact that it covers the entire borough. So there's nowhere now that you can't get to by public transport. And in terms of the fact that you know, we are looking at providing this sort of almost bespoke service to people who are relatively mobile and relatively able to go out and about on their own. But maybe, you know, do find just using the fixed buses just a bit too much to ask. It's a lot more affordable than taking a taxi every day. You know, we are looking at this as a significant step towards a really solid integrated public transport network. But there are obviously going to be cases that outlie this, that we aren't meeting either on day one, or, you know, and that we could meet later, or that we do need too much. Kerry, you've got a question.
Is there going to be a direct link for giving feedback?
Sorry, who's speaking?
Padma.
I'm Padma. Is there going to be any definite channel of communication to give feedback?
Yes, the app itself will allow you to give feedback on the ride. And obviously we'll have the phone line for booking where you can call and give feedback. You can use all the normal council processes for putting through comments, compliments, complaints, feedback generally. Kerry, you had your hand up. Sorry, I'm going to come back to you.
Are there going to be audio announcement of bus destination, bus stops?
There isn't. It's a smaller vehicle. It's not a bus. You can communicate with the driver during the journey, and it is shown on the app.
And typically the driver at the end of the ride, like the rider will, like when I'm usually in the vehicle, as we get to the destination, like, oh, I'm at the drop-off location of Jess. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I wasn't concentrating. Oh, I'm here, and I hop out. The driver will never drive past your bus stop. Like when you're scheduled to get out, if you haven't gotten out yourself, the driver will let you know that this is your stop.
And that's I just want to chime in quickly on the hearing impairment or any of the impairments is, again, the driver will know if you've chosen to share that information, when you book a ride or create your account, the driver will have a heads up about that. So, the driver can also assist in that. They can write their name on a piece of paper, or they can make sure that they're, giving notification out loud, or, whatever the accommodation need may be. That's something that we can facilitate, because we'll pass that information on to the driver, that they'll know to expect that and kind of adjust for it.
I mean, one of the things I really like about it, because I don't know Milton Keynes that well, and I've been out and about in Milton Keynes and gone, oh God, have I missed my stop? I don't actually know where I am. All the roundabouts look the same. And I won't have to worry about that, because in this service, they will be taking me where I'm going. And if there are several people in the vehicle, they are going to tell me when I get there. So, and I just think it's a really exciting step forward. And I realise, as I say, it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to completely fulfil everybody's needs 100%, possibly ever. But part of these first few months is going to very much be learning from the feedback we get, from the discussions we have, from keeping in touch with all of you on this call today, and working with VIA and also with the bus operators to learn from that and develop a better integrated network of public transport from the back of that. And the review we're doing a 6-month review with VIA. It's not just going to be on the contract with VIA. We are also going to be reviewing public transport needs in Milton Keynes, and how we're meeting them, whether we're doing the job, because I think it's a really good opportunity to meet more needs now with all of the changes that are happening, not just on this side, but some of the bus routes are becoming much more direct, which will mean that people have shorter journey times, that are using the fixed bus routes. So some of those rambling estate bits that are now being picked up by Jess and Natasha and the VIA team, it means that people can have shorter journey times on the mass transit routes. There's all the work that's being done around e-scooters and e-bikes for people who want to use that sort of sustainable transport. And there's a lot of work being done within the council and with our partners on how we can integrate things better, how we can make those interchanges easier for people. And then, as I say, as part of this review, we'll be doing what haven't we figured out yet? What do we still not know or understand properly in delivering public transport?
I hear what you say totally, Adele, but unless the council starts to involve the disabled groups, it means nothing. And up until now, the history is they don't include them.
No, I understand that.
I've had 45 years working in transport in London, and I know that the attitude and approach is totally different. And all these questions that they're getting asked now would have been done months ago, before the system even started to being put together in London.
To be fair, Annie, it would have been done months ago before the system started being put together if we hadn't had COVID.
COVID doesn't have. COVID is not a reason, and because we're all talking here now.
No, it is, because we accelerated this programme a lot because we wanted to move to demand responsive, but we weren't looking to do a big changeover at this scale. We were due to go out to tender on normal bus routes back in May and couldn't, and we ended up with a very squashed delivery time for procuring and delivering the new service, which did impact on our consultation process.
Was this a delegated decision?
Sorry?
Was this made as a delegated decision?
It was made in September.
So prior to September, all these discussions could have been had.
No.
I'm sorry, Natasha and the rest of you, you're getting into the middle of a debate about Milton Keynes Council accessibility.
Because we have kept people longer than we said we would already, and they've been very patient with us. But thank you everyone for your time.
I hope they're not. No, that's because they want to talk to us. Hang on. They're not staying here because they don't want to. Surely they want to hear these comments.
I wasn't talking about VIA.
You're talking about yourself.
I was talking about all of the guests who've joined us today from the groups.
I would guess they would be quite happy to continue the debate.
Well, we do have, and I will be picking this up with you all afterwards. I've got some brochures and things that we've done, like the brochure that was shown on the screen, that I will distribute to everybody on this call, possibly with Ernie's help if I don't have all of the email addresses in the invite.
There's a load more people that aren't here as well that need to be involved.
That can all be forwarded, and then we will continue these discussions over the next few months.
Right, will you be passing the questions over to them?
I will pass all of your questions over to them, and we will compile.
Okay, and can VIA and I talk directly, or VIA and the group? But I'm just using V as a name at the moment.
I'm very happy for people to talk to VIA directly, as long as I know what is being discussed, so that I can have the information and learning as well. Because it's no good them going off and knowing something and me being oblivious.
All right, I've worked contracts before, don't worry, I know the problems that go with that.
Okay.
I look forward to talking to you, Jess, Gabby, Natasha.
Likewise, thanks everyone. Thanks for
it's been really
thanks
good.
everyone. And Ernie, again, I think this is the beginning of the conversation. I'm very, very happy to chat more and dive into it and figure out the best approach, together collectively to make sure we're getting the word out to folks and also getting the word back from folks.
I'm sure Natasha's got my email address, but if not, Adele can pass it to you and then we can start talking.
I do indeed. Yeah, let me know, Ernie. Happy to do that whenever you want.
Because we can make it something very good for the disabled community, but it needs to involve nothing about us without us. It's been a common phrase in the disabled community for years and years and years. And it still doesn't apply.
Brilliant. And my screen has completely frozen, so I can't stop recording. So I'm just going to have to say thank you all for your time again. This will be put up on the council YouTube, so you can all revisit Ernie and my debate. Anything else that you want to in your own time. And I look forward to talking to you all and engaging with you all more over the coming months. So thank you all very much and have a good rest of the day.
Yes, you too.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
There we go.